All right, guys, thanks for joining me. Let's talk about motherhood for a minute. So, I just, as a teacher, had to make a phone call. I had to make a decision. I had to call it. I had to make a phone call to the person in charge where I worked today. Um, so, as a mother, which I find even more important than being a teacher, I have five sons, and I put all of my hardest work, my whole life work, into my family. That is where all my work went into. And obviously, I'm going to turn this a minute so I can see better. But obviously, how do I say this? I did other jobs, and I still do. Like when I serve people, it's very surface, very easy, not that hard of a job for me. I have tons, like 20 years experience serving people. When I do cleaning, I have over 10 years of cleaning experience professionally. Obviously, I've cleaned, like most people, more than that. So, um, so that's not a big deal. I'm dealing surfacely with people, and I'm dealing with cleaning products and cleaning stuff, physical work, serving, physical work. I don't have to think that hard to do these jobs. But when it came to mothering, not only did I mother, but I chose to homeschool so that I could be home with my kids, and I could not just be home all the time, I was out all the time, but so I could spend that time on my kids instead of giving it to a school. I spent a ton of time with my kids, and I chose to raise them. I chose to, instead of sending them to daycare or school, I chose to be the one to manage a school, a homeschool for my kids. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I'm very grateful that my husband gave me that opportunity. I actually took it. It was my idea, but he supported me, and I was able to homeschool. That's the one thing I wanted to do. One thing was to be the best mom I could be and to homeschool. Usually if someone's had a hard life, they'll usually change it, right? They'll usually do everything they can to change it. They won't be like, okay, let me just repeat history, right? They'll change it. So, I did deep work, guys. I didn't just homeschool, but I did deep, deep work. I did child development. How do we see kids? How do we see them? Do we see them as brats and just a pain, or do we see them as a soul to be molded by God, right? How do we see kids? I saw my kids as the heart need to be dealt with. It wasn't just about behavior. It's the heart, it's the character. So on a daily basis, working on that character with my kids. Um, Having fun with them, having relationship. Relationship is huge with your kids. It's huge. So I had to make a call. I had to call it today. So I called my boss and said, "Look, I texted her first and after she didn't answer and said, "Look, I did not have a real good experience today. Lots of yelling at the kids. If you'd like to talk about this, give me a call." She did call me. Um, After a minute, she did. And she said, "Oh, I talked to so and so, and I guess it was just a bad day." And I said, "Well, this is the way it was. There was a lot of yelling. I haven't seen it anywhere else with any other teachers. You have some great teachers. One of them is my son. He's an amazing teacher." And I said, "So this is what I saw today." And she's like, "Okay, well, that's kind of funny because my perspective yesterday was we had a lot of crafts." And I'm like, "We didn't even have scissors today. We had this and we had that." And I'm like, "You can do what you want with what I'm telling you, but this is what I saw today, and it's not acceptable." I said, it really isn't. I said, I don't believe you have to yell and scream at kids in order to get results. I feel like it's degrading and it's unnecessary. So I said, with those feelings that I have, I don't think I'll be back. I said, if you want to change things in the future, that would be okay. And she said, She said, can you give me specific examples on the playground? I said they were yelled at in class, they were yelled at the playground, they were yelled at when they came in. I go, well, yeah, one of the kids got, a parachute thing out and was told, what makes you think it's okay to go get that? And blah, 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 blah. My main concern was that they were, not only were the kids out of control, but the teachers were. And so I just laid it straight out. I'm like, you can do what you want with this, whether they really listen or not. I said, but this is how I feel. I cannot support teachers acting that way. So, so that's what I've chosen to do, guys. It's different as a teacher. They're not my kids. I don't have as much invested in them as my own kids. My own kids were very different. It was a lot of communication. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of building them up. It was a lot of activities. It was my whole entire life, which I was willing to give up for my family. But even other kids, I do love kids. How do you see kids? And a lot of these teachers don't have child development under their belt. There may be one teacher that does and the others don't. And I personally feel like if you don't have, some kind of child development or pass with, really understanding motherhood or really working with kids, I don't feel you deserve to be a teacher. That's how I feel. I have very strong feelings about the development of kids and how they are treated. I think that kids need structure. I feel they need structure, and I feel like they do need correction. And a lot of it, there is one teacher I will be working with tomorrow, and I said to this boss, I said, this person does a great job. They will give them consequences, and they will be strict with them and stern with them, but they also are not screaming basically at the top of their lungs out of control. So I said, I know jobs as a teacher are tough. The teachers are worn out. There's not a lot of support for teachers. I get it. They're doing this day in and day out, but never should they be screaming like they were today. And I'm telling you guys, I didn't tell her, but I mean, it really was on the side of really being abusive. I mean, screaming bloody murder at these kids and just, out of control. You can say to a kid, you can be like, I told you to cut the crap. I told you to stop that, and kind of put it in the spirit. You can talk in the spirit where they may think that you are mad, but you're really just coming across very firm, like you're mad, but you're not really that mad, but you're coming across that way. That's not what it was today. I mean, it was just dark to me. It was just screaming, and I'm like, I have no respect for these teachers. So, what's your philosophy with kids? Do you feel that you have to talk down to kids? Do you feel you have to make them feel like crap in order for them to listen? My husband was in a school system that was much like that, where you could not, he was always in trouble. I did not get in trouble, and I didn't say anything either. I didn't speak up. My husband would speak up and say, make jokes, because the teachers many times were being stupid. Like this teacher today is like, why are you screaming? Well, probably because you're screaming. You're setting the example, and my husband would have been someone who would have came out and cracked a joke and said, let me see, maybe because you're a bad example. And so he was always, in the principal's office where I would have taken stuff. So I made a choice, guys. I always do base my job decisions on principles. I will still have this job, but at a different school, at different schools. I had someone else call me right after to cover for them. And I'm like, sorry, tomorrow I'm covering for someone else. So it's just that particular place I will not be working for, because I'm not going to be part of it. I'm not going to be part of the system that can't be nice to kids and build them up. I feel kids need to be built up, encouraged, told that they're doing a good job, listened to. When you listen to a kid, it shows that they're important, that they're worthy. Eye contact, good manners. If a teacher cannot themselves use their manners and act act like a human being, I don't know why you think the kids are going to act any different. So I think there should be systems in place where there's routines and that everybody knows what's expected, that there is actually leadership. People actually know who they are looking to follow. Um, I think equipment should be in good shape so kids can enjoy, activities without getting hurt and not being watered down to dumb stuff. Um, I think there's a lot that needs to change in the schools, guys, and I have felt that way for years, and that's why I homeschooled. So yeah, I will not be helping out there, and I hate to say it because they do need help there, but I will not be part of that. And hopefully this is a challenge to them to look at it as, maybe we need to think about it. And she said, well, if you feel this way, I'm sure other parents may feel that way too. And the funny thing is, the parents come to pick up their kids and it's, oh, hi, how are you? And the whole tone will change just like that. And the thing is, too, what I saw was parents pick up their kids and there's no, well, how was Sally today? Well, Sally was great. This is what happened today. We need to talk about this. I've seen it with other teachers where they will come right out and talk to the parents and say, your kid wasn't listening today and this is what happened, or they did great on this. I feel parents need that feedback. So, if you're working for a company and the kids are going to start saying, you know what, I hate it there, that's your bread and butter. So why would you do that to yourself? Okay, thanks for joining me, guys.